All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us for this technical assistance webinar introducing the recently released Delta Workforce Program Grant Request for Proposals. As we deal with these unprecedented times, we want to let you know that DRA is here to support your workforce development efforts. Because of the huge economic and workforce ramifications of COVID-19, we are putting our best efforts into creating content, trainings, and new ways to serve you as fast as we can. So with that, it is my pleasure to welcome DRA Federal Co-Chairman Chris Caldwell to provide a welcome and some opening remarks. Again, Chairman Caldwell, thank you for joining us this morning.
All right, thank you, Ari. I greatly appreciate you putting all this together and your whole team and participants. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate all of you for hopping on one more Zoom. I don't know about you, but I'm zoomed out. I've gone from one Zoom to another this morning, and I know that it can be tiresome. But this is a program that we're very proud of here at the Delta Regional Authority, and addressing, frankly, what I see as one of our greatest needs in our footprint. But not only that, it's also a pillar of our one of our four congressional mandated statutes. And I think that arguably, and in certain areas and in certain times, is one of the most important, and that's workforce development. So I want to thank you for participating. The Ari and Alex and Susan and Mandy have put together a program here that I believe that will be great benefit in helping us to address some of the inequities and deficiencies in workforce development across our footprint. And that couldn't come at a more important time. As you well know, as the economy is on its way to a roaring comeback still, our areas were impoverished and depressed before with employment, and that's only been expanded by this. And as we continue to make efforts and inroads into there, we're going to have to continue to think out of the box. So I believe that this program will help facilitate that. So with that all said, I just again want to ask that you give Ari and the team here all of your undivided attention. We're here for help, even post this, anything that we can do to help you develop a quality program and application. And then as always, just anything else that we can do, I'm available and love to. Wish we could all be in person doing this, to be honest with you, but we've put together, I believe, a great program for the next best thing. So with that, Ari, I'll hand it back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Chairman Caldwell. So as the chairman mentioned, my name is Ari Kanglis, and I'm a program manager with the Delta Regional Authority. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Alex Holland, senior advisor here at DRA. We will be guiding you through today's webinar. As we move through the webinar, if you have any questions, please submit those in the chat feature located at the bottom of your screen. Alex and I will monitor those questions and address them in order at the conclusion of the webinar. So here's an outline of today's agenda. For the next 15 minutes, Alex and I will give you a brief introduction to the 2020 Delta Workforce Grant Program, including award and eligibility information. Next, we will take a deeper dive into the 2020 request for proposals, highlighting important sections and scoring criteria. Along the way, we will be providing examples of how successful workforce development projects, 2019 workforce development projects, incorporated one or more of the eligible activities into their proposal. And before we close, we'll have time for Q&A and to address those questions. Finally, we'll leave you with some additional resources and ways you can connect with us throughout the application cycle. So first, it wouldn't be a good presentation if I didn't warn you about some acronyms that I might use that might be used throughout this presentation. Generally, the one that I'll refer to the most is DWP. If I say DWP, I'm generally referring to the grant program we're going to be discussing today. So with that, I will turn it over to Alex to provide you with a little bit more of an overview of the funding opportunity.
Thanks, Ari, and welcome everybody. Just to give you an overview of the Delta Workforce Grant Program, this is a $1.5 million program that complements the Department of Labor's Workforce Opportunity for Rural Communities program. Some of you might be familiar with that initiative, but this is the second year that we have put out this program and the funding opportunity. Last year, we were able to fund 10 projects across the DRA region. The award ceiling for this program is $150,000, so your request cannot be larger than $150,000, and the award floor is $25,000. And the purpose of this program is essentially to fund projects that support workforce development solutions that also align with local and regional economic development strategies. We'll go more into detail in just a few minutes, but one of the key pieces of this program is also providing technical assistance to all of you, to prospective applicants, and also to awardees of this program. So you are on the pre-award technical assistance webinar, and in normal times, we would be doing this in person and would be with all of you in the region. But alas, it's 2020, and so we'll make do with this today. The other piece of this program is also providing post-award technical assistance to those who successfully apply and win an award through this program. We want to ensure that you're able to efficiently and effectively deploy federal funds. We want to make sure you get your program off the ground. And so the team at DRA and select partners will assist you as you implement your project. So to get started with this program, hopefully many of you have done this. If not, it's okay, you came to the right place. Visit dra.gov/workforce, and we've got the request for proposals posted on that website, and you'll also see a lot of resources on our website as well as you prepare your application. We ask that you review the RFP and look at the mandatory attachments that you'll need to successfully apply for this program. And on workforce.dra.gov, that is where you'll register an account with us, and that's where you'll apply. We are doing only online applications for this program. So applications this year are due October 12th, so we just have less than a month for you to submit those. Those will be due by 11:59 p.m. Central Time. Unfortunately, DRA will not accept hard copy submissions, but as you'll see later in the presentation, the funding portal is pretty user-friendly, and you should be able to submit your application on there with plenty of time.
Thanks, Alex. So the purpose of this program and the goal of this program is to take a long-term view towards assisting eligible communities in diversifying their economies by investing in local strategies developed by regional partners. As mentioned, the goal of this grant opportunity is to create a more vibrant economic future and gainful employment opportunities for eligible residents in the DRA region, enabling them to remain and thrive in these communities. The objectives of this program, there are four, and they're shown here. Successful applicants will address at least one of these objectives and their proposed projects. And we'll discuss each one of these a little bit more in turn as we go through this presentation. But first is developing or enhancing cross-sector collaboration, delivering specific workforce services, meeting identified local or regional needs, creating or expanding workforce training programs addressing high-quality employment opportunities, and supporting the delivery of quality, innovative training and workforce services. And again, I'll highlight the award information one more time. It's at a $1.5 million total program funding, with an award ceiling of $150,000 and a floor of $25,000. And funding for this program will be provided in the form of a grant. The period of performance for these grants will be no more than 24 months, and the period begins following an official notice to proceed. And the 24-month period of performance includes all necessary implementation and startup activities. And by the way, one thing to note, if awarded, all notice to proceed for this program will be granted on the same day. That way we can create, what we're looking for here is to create a community of practice and be able to track these programs and work with each round of grantees in turn. So that means all award documents must be submitted back to DRA by the specified date that will be included in that award package. Here I want to highlight eligible applicants for this program. This list is not exhaustive. A full list of the eligible entities can be found on page 6 of the RFP. But generally speaking, any state, county, city government, special district government, both public and private institutions of higher education, regional development organizations, state or local workforce development boards, nonprofit entities, and independent school districts are eligible applicants under this program. Among the eligible applicants listed on the previous slide, the applicant agency or organization must also demonstrate collaboration or engagement with at least one employer or industry partner, and should partner with other organizations serving the economic, workforce development, or other needs of the community that the application proposes to serve. Applicants are also required to demonstrate that they will serve eligible participants who live in the DRA region. And one thing to note for this program is that applying organizations may train for jobs that are located outside of the DRA region and just immediately adjacent employment centers, but must clearly demonstrate successful employment will not require those being trained to relocate outside of the DRA region. This program requires a 15% cost share match by non-DRA sources. We also strongly encourage applicant projects to leverage additional resources with partners and other stakeholders. Including such funds is not one of the application screening criteria, but we strongly encourage applicants to look for those additional partners that can bring additional resources to the table. Only one application from each organization will be considered for funding. While only one can be considered per organization, that applicant can also be listed as a partner entity on another organization's application. So quickly, I will highlight the investment priorities for this program, and we will give a brief overview of each, along with examples of how these activities were incorporated into successful workforce development grant applications. So the first, supporting industry-led workforce training, building collaborative talent pipelines, supporting or enhancing industry clusters, and finally, accelerating local or regional economic development. So supporting industry-led workforce training, applicants should engage local or regional industry partners to understand their ongoing and evolving needs to develop or expand workforce training programs that address the skills gap that is preventing these employers from filling vacant positions or expanding their operations. A project from 2019 that I'd like to highlight is Black River Technical College, which was awarded under the first round of the Delta Workforce Program grant. They implemented and expanded a CDL training program. With DWP funding, they were able to purchase equipment, specifically a truck, as well as hire a new instructor to develop and expand a fast-track CDL training program. So second, building collaborative talent pipelines. Applicants should develop collaborative partnerships between K through 12 education systems, institutions of higher education, workforce training partners, and local or regional industry partners to sustain the talent pipeline that meets the current and future workforce needs of employers in high growth sectors. So one that I'd like to highlight is Basecamp Coding Academy. This is down in Water Valley, Mississippi. Their Everest project was really an expansion of their existing full stack software development training program. And the reason for highlighting this program was Basecamp's really innovative approach to selecting students and those partnerships that they created with their local educational systems. Really the leadership at those schools, and to select students, bring them into this training program, and really put them on a path to high demand careers and getting them successfully employed very quickly after completion of this program. Supporting or enhancing industry clusters. Applicants should assess their local or regional industry clusters that exist to create or expand workforce training programs that address the skills gap in these high growth industries and strengthen the economic competitiveness of the region. A 2019 example was a project from Greater New Orleans Inc., GNO Inc., down in New Orleans, in partnership with 3 community colleges there, their mechatronics apprenticeship program. They developed a new apprenticeship program meeting a very specific need of 3 industry partners there, actually in the food development and manufacturing sector. That is really a model for many regions across the country. And this was one that was actually funded under, as Alex mentioned, the Workforce Opportunity for Rural Communities program. And finally, accelerating local or regional economic development. Applicants should assess existing data and studies informing local and regional economic development priorities to ensure the proposed project advances local or regional economies. 2019 project example that was funded under this Delta Workforce Program was the Research Park Corporation in Apprenti, Louisiana, which is the state-specific model of a larger model that I believe originated in the Portland area, but really to expand capacity and outreach for these tech-based apprenticeships with local and regional tech sector employers, and really increasing those partnerships in those target sectors. So that was a lot of information, but now that you have an introduction to the RFP and successful 2019 project examples, we're going to transition into a section by section discussion of the RFP and review the requirements and content of a competitive proposal. As a reminder, please submit any questions that you have into the chat function at the bottom of your screen. So first, I'll begin with examples of eligible participants. These are general descriptors that are used for most target populations that you all may aim your workforce training programs towards. So new entrants, individuals who have never been in the workforce or have been out of the workforce long enough to assume that if they were entering the workforce for the first time, dislocated workers or individuals who are terminated or laid off or received notice of termination, and then incumbent workers, individuals who are currently employed and need training to secure full-time employment, advance in their careers, or retain their current positions. And again, I'll just highlight the allowable grant activities. And with that, we will transition into a discussion of the scoring criteria. So the project narrative must demonstrate the applicant's capability to implement the grant project in accordance with the provisions of the RFP. It must provide a comprehensive framework and description of all aspects of the proposed project. It must be succinct, self-explanatory, and well organized so that reviewers can understand the proposed project. The project narrative is comprised of 5 sections listed here, totaling 75 possible points. And with that, I will turn it over to Alex to discuss the first section, project information.
Thanks, Ari. So for project information, it's the most important part of your application. And you'll notice if you're looking at the RFP, pages 12 and 13 will highlight the scoring criteria. We recommend when you review the RFP that you also take a look at the scoring criteria and understand how your project will meet the requests of the RFP so that you're aligning your project with the program, putting you in the most competitive position possible. So we're going to go over the project description. It's worth 17 points. The project rationale, it's worth 15 points. The project team and relevant experience is worth 5 points, and local and regional collaboration worth 3 points. It's important that your project information demonstrates how the proposed activities will address industry-driven workforce development and training in the DRA service area. For the project description, worth 17 points, we've broken this down into 5 key categories. One is the description of community or communities, depending on how large or the scope of your project is. That is essentially describing the area with your demographic and economic indicators. So make sure we have an understanding of the region that you're going to be serving through your project. The second piece is alignment with strategic plans. So that is a local or regional plan. We want to make sure that your workforce development project is serving the economic development strategies of your region. The project design is worth 8 points. And that really starts to get into the meat of your project and understanding your approach. How are you addressing the needs of your community, the employers and job seekers and workers that might be part of your program? The fourth category is demonstration of inclusion of an opportunity zone. You do not have to be located in an opportunity zone to be eligible to apply. These are simply points that will target those projects that are located in an opportunity zone. And lastly, demonstration of inclusion in a persistent poverty county or parish. You will see resources within the RFP for you to determine that, but that is based on the 1990, 2000, and 2010 census data. That is if your region has been in poverty of above 20% for more than 30 years. And that, again, does not mean that you have to be located in a persistent poverty county, but you will just get an additional point if you are. Next is the project rationale. And again, we have broken this down into 5 key categories, a total of 15 points. We have the description of workforce needs, and that is really the extent to which you describe the workforce needs of local and or regional employers and the specific skills gap that you'll be addressing with your proposed project. The last 4 pieces are ensuring that you're in line with DRA strategic investment goals, the program investment priorities, the program objectives, and the program funding principles. We want you to spend less time on which of these you just align with and more of demonstrating how you align with each of these goals, priorities, objectives, and funding principles. You'll see the explanations of each of these in the RFP, but we'll dig in a little bit on the next slide. So DRA's strategic investment goals stem from the Regional Development Plan 3. This was the last 5-year plan that DRA published in April 2016, and there were 3 primary goals in this. 1 is improved workforce competitiveness, 2 is strengthened infrastructure, and 3, increased community capacity. In your application, you need to demonstrate alignment with 1 or more of these goals, again, demonstrating how your proposed project aligns with 1 or more of these goals. And this can be accessed on the DRA website. We've got the link in the RFP, and we also have the link on dra.gov/workforce under our resources. These are the next three components, and this is the Delta Workforce Grant Program investment priorities, our objectives, and the funding principles. Again, you need to demonstrate your alignment with one or more in each of these categories within your application. And so just briefly, our investment priorities are supporting industry-led workforce training. That means your employers in your region are influencing and involved in the workforce training or curriculum that is being developed, that we're serving their needs. Second is building collaborative talent pipelines, and that means bringing everybody at the table to ensure that we're creating a program that is sustainable, that we are serving talent, whether they be those folks that are going through university, they're going to a community college, they're going through a workforce training program, through another service provider, a registered apprenticeship, you name it. Supporting or enhancing industry clusters. That just means we're wanting to serve the industry that's located in your region right now. What is existing? How can we meet their needs so that they can retain employees, so that they can expand, and that their supply chain is able to grow in your region? And then lastly, accelerating local or regional economic development. Again, going back to that alignment with economic development strategies in your region, we want to make sure we're serving the current needs of economic development so that you can continue to grow and thrive in the region. The program objectives include job creation. Ultimately, we want this training to lead to job creation. There needs to be a very clear connection. Workforce training for high demand careers. We want to make sure that those job seekers that are going through these training programs are entering careers that they'll be able to grow in and remain in for a long period of time. So we want them to be high quality jobs. And then lastly, capital investment. If this program, this training program encourages businesses in the area to invest in the capital of the region, we really want to aim for that objective. And then lastly, funding principles. We want to make sure that there has been an assessment completed or some planning done around the priorities for workforce development in your region. Are they actually aligned with the economic development goals of your region? We want these projects to be collaborative. Again, making sure everybody that needs to be at the table is there. And that's both public and private partners to ensure this is a sustainable program. We want to see evidence of leverage. As already mentioned, there is a 15% cost share for this program or matching requirement. That could be cash or in kind, but we want to see that your community is bought into this. Understanding that budgets have been hard hit by the crisis this year, we wanted to make sure that you all had the option to use both cash and or in kind, so it can be a mix, it can be one or the other, but just show us that there's some buy-in, that there are resources being provided by your partnership team. And lastly, we want this to be outcome driven. Again, we don't just want to create a training program, we want to make sure that people are trained and people are placed into high quality jobs. So to wrap up the project information section here, the last two categories are your project team and relevant experience, which is worth 5 points. The applicant must identify key members of the project team. You need to describe their roles and responsibilities as a part of the project. So we don't need to necessarily include everybody, but your top or core team should be included in this. If you are going to be hiring as a result of this project or this grant, then we need you to attach the job descriptions. If you are using existing personnel, please attach the current resumes. Essentially, this section is demonstrating to us that the project team has the relevant experience as well as the organizational capacity to manage and implement the proposed project. And then lastly, local and regional collaboration worth 3 points. As an applicant, you must demonstrate that local and or regional collaboration with public partners exists. So that's both public and private partners. To receive full points, the applicant must describe the role and responsibilities of each partner and identify any leveraged resources. Again, that can be either cash or in kind. And additionally, with the role and responsibilities of each partner, you don't need to include every single partner that could touch your project, but who is that core team that's really going to be involved in the proposed project. Ari, I'll hand it back over to you for anticipated project outcomes.
Thanks, Alex. So for the Delta Workforce Program proposal, the applicant must provide specific, measurable, achievable, and reasonable project outcomes to be accomplished during the period of performance. As you can see here, the anticipated project outcomes section is divided into 2 categories worth 10 total points. The first is demonstration of realistic and attainable outcomes worth 6 points. And second, demonstration of specific and relevant outcomes worth 4 points. To be considered for the full points under this section, the applicant must identify outcomes that align with the need, gaps, or challenges that were identified in the project description. At a minimum, the applicant must include the number of communities served, individuals trained, and industry or businesses served as anticipated project outcomes. The application will be scored on the extent to which the applicant proposes realistic and attainable outcomes to be achieved during the period of performance and proposes specific and relevant outcomes that are to be achieved at the conclusion of the program. Next is the work plan, broken down into 2 sections worth 10 total points. The first, project deliverables, is worth 5 points. And second, project timeline, also worth 5 points. The applicant must describe the task necessary to complete the project, including key personnel assigned, time period for completion, deliverables, and budget for each task. To be considered for full points, the applicant must provide a detailed work plan for the entire period of performance, which may not exceed 24 months. So for the project deliverables section, this section is scored off the extent to which the applicant proposes appropriate and relevant deliverables to ensure efficient deployment of project resources. And for project timeline, this section must demonstrate project completion during the period of performance, and each activity is listed and described appropriately and for the entire 24-month period of performance. And I will turn it back over to Alex to discuss the local demand and employer partnerships.
Thanks, Ari. For evidence of local demand and employer letters worth 10 points, there are 2 key sections that DRA is targeting here. One is demonstration of demand from local and regional industry worth 6 points. And the second piece here is evidence of employer engagement. It's really important that the applicant demonstrates how the project develops or enhances the skills of the target population to meet the needs of the employer or industry partners. You will hear Chairman Caldwell say industry-driven, industry-led. That's really what's in DRA's DNA when it comes to workforce development. So this is a really, really important section. And I want to mention that to be considered for full points, the applicant must provide information about the employer that will participate in or benefit from the proposed project and provide letters of engagement from each one of the identified employer or industry partners. If letters are not included in the application, your application will not be considered. So for evidence of local demand, this is the extent to which you as the applicant provides evidence of demand for skilled workers from local or regional businesses and high growth industries. We want to understand what the skills gap is, what employers you're serving, and connecting the dots from job seeker to training to job placement. We also need to see evidence of employer engagement, and what that means is providing those letters of engagement from at least one employer in the local or regional area.
Thanks, Alex. So thinking about funding information, and this section is worth 5 points, broken down into 2 pieces. The commitment of matching funds worth 3 points, and the budget and budget narrative alignment worth 2 points. The applicant must provide the total amount of funding being requested from DRA and demonstrate at least a 15% matching funds from non-DRA sources. The applicant must provide information about the source or sources of the matching funds, including a letter of commitment from the source or other supporting documentation as evidence. To be considered for full points, the applicant must provide a categorical budget narrative for both DRA and non-DRA funds, and describe how these costs align with the proposed project.
So there are 4 key attachments that are being requested for this program. One that we just discussed was those employer attachments. Those are the letters of engagement from employers that will be involved in the project or will needs that will be met or served by the project. The second is verification of matching funds. That means a letter of commitment. That means a resolution authorizing funds if it's coming from a public entity. But we need to have proof that these funds are in fact committed to the project. If you do not provide a letter of commitment or anything that verifies these matching funds, we cannot consider those being committed funds. The third thing is key staff resumes. So that will be personnel that is supported by the project. We need to see the key staff resumes attached, or if you're hiring, and you can do either or here, you need to include job descriptions for the personnel you do propose to hire, or if it is contractual, we need to see job descriptions for that. Now that we're out of the scoring criteria, we just want to give you an overview of how these applications will be reviewed. DRA will pre-screen these applications to determine eligibility and completeness. For example, if employer letters are not included, that is an application that will not be considered. Or if the applicant entity, for example, is a private business, that's ineligible, that application will not be considered. These applications are going to be reviewed by a panel of DRA staff. They're going to be scored individually against the elements that you see in the RFP under section F. So not only do we provide you with that scoring criteria, we also provide explanations for what will be scored specifically. We highly recommend you review the scoring criteria to ensure that your project aligns with the program. Lastly, the total number of grants awarded will depend on the number of competitive applications as well as the amounts requested. Like I said, last year, 10 awards were made. It might be something similar this year, but it'll all depend on the amount requested and the number of applications received.
Thanks, Alex. And we've covered a lot of information today, but as Alex mentioned, like last year, we have moved the application process completely online, and we've received a ton of questions about this new portal that has been developed, and we wanted to take the opportunity to very quickly introduce you to the portal, the registration process, and then provide some context and show you what the application looks like inside of this portal and how to navigate. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. So when you navigate to workforce.dra.gov, this is the landing page that you will see. So if you've already created an account, great. For those of you that are still in the development of your application and getting ready to start the process, if this is your first time, you'll click here to register and start your application. And then once you have gone through that registration process and received your notification of, that you've created an account and set your password, when you log back in, you will see this dashboard. And from this dashboard, as it says, you will click here to get started. And from here, you will be redirected to the first page, which is the applicant information page. And y'all bear with me, I added some videos to this and hopefully they will work. So this applicant information page here, you will enter your organization's name, the type of entity, you'll include your EIN number, your DUNS number, and all relevant information about your organization. And from there, you will add the primary point of contact for the grant application. Once you fill that information out, you'll click Save and Continue, where then you'll be directed to the project information page. From here, it will automatically fill your project name, and you'll select your project type, whether it's construction or non-construction, whether you have a capital expenditure associated in your project, and then how long your project will take to complete. So there's a drop-down menu noting 1 to 24 months. You will also here enter a project summary, start your project description, enter the project rationale that Alex discussed, highlight your project team, your local and regional collaborations, and then your project area. In this section, if it's a city that you're serving or wherever your project will be housed, primarily located, you'll include that here, and then include a section of your congressional district, the counties or parishes that are covered by the project, and you can select multiple if you're serving a multi-county or parish area. Also, we have a pre-populated list of counties and parishes that are deemed both distressed and persistent poverty. And from here, you can select all of those that apply. And if you are proposing to serve an area that includes a census tract identified as an opportunity zone, in this box, you can type in that census tract number, and then also include the population of the project area to be served. As I mentioned a moment ago, you will also need to include project outcomes. We'll let it get back down to that. Sorry, everyone. I knew these videos may be cumbersome. So as you can see here for the project outcomes, the 3 that you must require are community served, individuals trained, and industry or businesses served. You'll want to include the number of those and then provide a brief description for each. We've also given you a few examples here that you might also consider including as anticipated project outcomes. If there are others, you can include those here at the bottom, and then you will be directed to the work plan where you can add a task, the time period, completion, deliverables, and budget for each for the entire period of performance. Then you will move on to the evidence of local demand, where you can add that employer and provide the employer information, upload those letters of support and engagement from that industry partner, and provide your assurances. Clicking Save and Continue, you will then be directed to the budget section. So from here, you will enter the total amount that you're requesting from DRA through this program, and then include the total amount of matching funds. With those matching funds, you'll need to include the funder name, the match type, the type of organization that's providing those funds, and then upload that letter of commitment that Alex alluded to a minute ago. And then from there, you will scroll down and you will see the DRA budget categories. Many of you will notice this looks really familiar to the traditional SF 424A. So you have lines for personnel, fringe, travel, equipment, supplies, contractual. So you will include the amount of funding that will be utilized for each one of those, and then include the budget narrative for each out to the side. One thing I will note is that at the top you see remaining funds to be allocated. We've built this nice little feature into this portal that as you allocate that funding to each one of these budget categories, it will automatically deduct that. And so once you get to that 0, that shows that you properly allocated all of the funds that you've requested. So you will do this both for the DRA funding, as well as the non-DRA funding or the match funding that is provided here that you'll be contributing to the project as well. And this will go through the same for each, same budget categories for each. Next, this will move down to the quarterly forecast. And from here, we'd like to see that you have thought about how these funds will be distributed across the 24-month period of performance. So you'll be providing us with some estimates of how those funds will be dispersed in accordance with the project activities and implementation timeline. So you will do this for both the DRA and non-DRA funds. And then at the bottom of this page, you will provide those attachments that Alex mentioned earlier. So your key staff resumes or job descriptions, or any other supporting documentation for your application as applicable. So once you hit save and continue, you will be redirected to this landing page. The final dashboard, you'll see your project has been uploaded. Status is new. It'll show the year. So what you will do from here, you have the ability to go up and click edit. And from this section, you can edit your applicant information, your project information, or your funding information. And if you're happy with your application, you can go over to Actions and click Send to DRA, which will then send your project for review. You can also click Project Details, which will provide you with a summary of your application, or you can print your application. So I know we've covered a significant amount of information throughout this webinar, but we are happy to answer any questions that you have. Alex, I noticed you've been kind of monitoring the Q&A. Are there any questions?
Yeah, so I'll actually answer this question that just came in. When will the funding of the DWP be announced? These awards will be announced in early November. We don't have an exact date just yet, but it will be announced in the first or second week of November. The other question that I had previously, in case folks didn't see, what is the difference between matching funds and the 15% cash or in-kind contribution? I just want to confirm that those are the same thing. We are requesting 15% matching funds, whether they be cash and or in kind, a combination thereof for the program. Another question was, will quarterly reporting be done online as well? Yes. I will mention that if for some reason you are unable to do that, we could accept other forms of quarterly reporting, but we'll handle that on a case-by-case basis. I think the most common question was, will they have access to PowerPoint slides after the presentation? And just to confirm, a recording of the presentation as well as a copy of these slides will be provided to all participants, will be uploaded as well to the dra.gov/workforce website under 2020 resources. Another question we received was, if you applied for CDAP, that's DRA's State's Economic Development Assistance Program grant, are you eligible to apply for the Delta Workforce Grant Program? Again, the answer to that is yes. These are two distinct programs, so you can absolutely apply for this program. I'll wait another minute or so. If there are any questions, please submit in the chat or in the Q&A feature. All right, we received another question. As a company that is looking to assist in funding several of these projects, will individual applications be disadvantaged by our involvement in multiple? That's a great question. No. While an applicant can only submit one application, even applicants can be partners on other applications. If you are a private employer partnering on an application, you can apply or partner with multiple applicants that are submitting applications for this opportunity. Great question. I believe that is all of the questions. If there are any others, our contact information is available. Please feel free to reach out to us. One thing that DRA strives to do is to provide technical assistance pre-award. That means you can reach out, send us an email. We also have a form online that's really easy to use, so we have an understanding of what your question is. We'll discuss your project with you. We'll help you so that you can be as competitive as possible in this grant competition. We'll get on the phone with you. We'll get on a video conference with you. So please don't be shy. Reach out to us. We'd be happy to discuss with you. Oh, sorry, we got one more question. Can we partner with employers that are not including in the skills gap or included in the skills gap? So unless you are addressing the skills gap of the local or regional area that you're proposed to serve, you certainly won't have as competitive of an application. Now, understanding that remote jobs are becoming more available online, there would have to be a clear distinction that the employer, wherever they are based, will be training and employing job seekers with jobs that they could realistically sustain based on where they're at. But we're really targeting supporting those employers that are located in the local or regional area, demonstrating the skills gap that they have and showing how your program is meeting those needs. We've got another question. Individuals can be placed in jobs outside of their residence Delta region as long as they are placed within one of the Delta region's areas, correct? I think if I'm understanding that question correctly, so long as job seekers that are going through training are able to continue to live in the region, you are able to train them for jobs outside of the region, but not so that they are being pulled or having to or forced to move outside of the region. So long as they can remain and thrive in their region, within the Delta region, it is okay. Another question, if our project focuses on training, do our employer letters have to state how many will be hired? Another great question. So within the letters of engagement from employers, there are two key components here. One, what is the skills gap or the need that they're seeing? One thing that we also want to see within those letters is how many people with that skills, with those skills they could hire or potentially hire, anticipate to hire. This does not mean that employers are committed to hire these individuals. We understand that things change, but what we want to see is something that is realistic. For example, if you're in a town of 1,000 people and you have a small employer that has 20 employees and says they're expanding, they could hire another 200 people. It's not going to look realistic to us when we're reviewing the application. So I want to keep in mind that we want these to be as realistic as possible. But we want to address the skills gap and we want to see anticipation of hiring these individuals. I hope that answers your question. All right, seeing no other questions, I want to thank you all for joining us today for this presentation on the Delta Workforce Grant Program and the request for proposals. As I mentioned previously, we're here to answer any questions, discuss your project with you. These applications are due October 12th. Visit dra.gov/workforce for more information and resources. And don't forget, the application portal is located at workforce.dra.gov. All of this information is on the DRA website, so please visit those, or visit that website, check out our resources. We've got a lot of really good information for you. Again, thank you for joining. We appreciate your interest in the program.